This is the story about how I won the lotto after my wife divorced me. It's a tale of unexpected twists, where the end of one chapter led to the beginning of an extraordinary new one. I met Linda during our junior year of college. We were both attending a liberal arts college in a small town, and I first noticed her in a literature class. She had this spark in her eyes, the kind that makes you believe in the magic of new beginnings. Her laughter was infectious, and her presence filled the room in a way that was both subtle and undeniable. We struck up a conversation after class one day, and it felt like we had known each other forever. There was something about her that made me feel like I was finally coming home. We started spending more time together, and before long, we were inseparable. The chemistry between us was undeniable, and I remember thinking how lucky I was to have found someone so amazing. But then, about 6 months into our relationship, everything changed. I had this sinking feeling, a nagging thought in the back of my mind that something was off. I wasn't paranoid, but I couldn't shake the feeling. One evening, while I was visiting her apartment unannounced, I walked in to find her with another guy, an ex-boyfriend she dated before meeting me. The shock of it was like a punch to the gut. I confronted her right there and she broke down, tears streaming down her face as she begged me to forgive her. Her apologies were heartfelt, but the betrayal cut deep. I was torn apart, but despite the pain, I decided to give her another chance. I thought that maybe our connection was strong enough to overcome this. Senior year brought its own whirlwind of changes. Linda found out she was pregnant, and suddenly, our world was spinning out of control. Her father, an imposing figure with a firm hand and old-fashioned values, was adamant that we get married immediately. He wasn't exactly thrilled about the situation, and it felt like he was more interested in saving face than in our happiness. The wedding was a hurried affair, filled with tension and a palpable sense of obligation. I remember the day with a mixture of resignation and hope. Linda and I were married, and we both knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one we hadn't exactly planned for but were determined to face together. As the months passed and Linda's belly grew round with twins, something remarkable happened. My feelings for her, which had been shaken and uncertain, began to shift. Seeing her go through the pregnancy, her strength and resilience, I found myself falling in love with her all over again. The birth of our twins was a turning point, a moment of joy and wonder that drew us closer. Holding our babies in my arms, I realized that the love I had for Linda wasn't just about us. It was about building a life together. Linda and I worked through our issues, growing together as we navigated the challenges of parenthood. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it evolved into something deep and meaningful. Life seemed to settle into a rhythm after the twins were born. Linda and I were busy with the demands of parenthood, and I often felt like I was carrying more than my fair share of the load. Between late nights with the babies and the responsibilities of work, I found myself playing the role of a single parent more often than not. As the months went by, I noticed changes in Linda. Her figure, which had once been vibrant and full of life, started to change. She began gaining weight, and while I reassured her that I loved her regardless of her appearance, I could see that the changes were taking a toll on her self-esteem. Her insecurities were evident, and I tried my best to support her, though I often felt overwhelmed by the demands of raising our twins and keeping up with the household. It was around this time that I noticed she was becoming increasingly secretive. Her Facebook account, once open and shared, was now guarded with a new password. She would stay late at work more frequently, and though I wanted to believe she was just dedicated to her job, a nagging feeling of unease persisted. One evening, while looking for something in her desk drawer, I stumbled upon an old unlocked BlackBerry that Linda had kept hidden from me. In it, there were a series of text messages between Linda and a man I didn't recognize, some as recent as the day prior. The messages were intimate and flirtatious, and it was clear that something was happening between them. My heart sank as I pieced together the truth. Linda had been seeing someone from work, someone she had become close with, her so-called work husband. When I confronted her about the messages, she didn't deny it. Her face was a mask of sadness and resignation. She admitted that she had been seeing this man, but what hurt the most was her refusal to stop the affair. She seemed to be trapped in a cycle of emotional turmoil, and when I pressed her for answers, she finally opened up about why she had chosen him over me. Linda explained that she felt neglected and unappreciated. She said that the emotional connection she had with her work husband filled a void she felt in our marriage. She spoke of a longing for validation and intimacy that she felt was missing in our relationship. According to her, the constant pressure of balancing work, parenting, and maintaining our household had left her feeling isolated and disconnected. She said she craved the excitement and affirmation that this new relationship provided, a stark contrast to the routine and struggles of our daily life. Her words were a bitter pill to swallow. I had always tried to be understanding and supportive, but hearing her justify her actions by highlighting the shortcomings of our life together was a painful blow. It wasn't just about the affair, it was about the realization that, despite my best efforts, I had not been able to give her what she thought needed, and she had sought solace elsewhere. The decision to remain in this relationship was no longer just about love, it was about finding a way forward despite the betrayals and emotional wreckage. I knew we had to face this together, but it was clear that rebuilding trust would be an arduous process. I poured everything I had into trying to make our marriage work after discovering Linda's affair. I hoped that with enough effort and understanding, we could overcome the rifts that had formed between us. I reached out for counseling, suggested therapy sessions, and even tried to rekindle the spark that once made us so close. But Linda was resolute. She had already made up her mind. One day, without any warning, she obtained an attorney and filed for divorce. It felt like a cold, harsh reality had descended upon me. The divorce proceedings were swift and unyielding, and Linda seemed indifferent to the turmoil it caused me or our children. The court process was, in many ways, a painful reminder of how the system often fails to account for the human side of things. Infidelity wasn't a factor the court considered when making decisions about the division of assets or custody arrangements. I was forced to watch as Linda, who had already betrayed our vows, walked away with nearly all of our assets and a substantial child support arrangement. The sum she received was staggering and seemed disproportionate to the reality of our situation, and the child support payments were exorbitant, which ultimately left me financially devastated. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that despite my best efforts and sacrifices, I was now struggling to make ends meet, while Linda seemed to have moved on with her affair partner and a newfound financial stability. The financial burden from the child support payments was overwhelming, and I found myself scraping by, barely able to cover the essentials. During this incredibly difficult time, the only person who reached out to help me was an old college buddy, Jake. He had always been someone I could rely on, and he stepped up when I needed support the most. Jake offered me a place to stay, letting me crash on his couch while I tried to get back on my feet. His generosity provided a glimmer of hope and a much-needed reprieve from the overwhelming stress and financial strain. Jake's couch was a small sanctuary amidst the chaos. It was there that I tried to regroup and slowly rebuild my life. His help was a reminder that, even in the midst of betrayal and hardship, there were still people who cared and were willing to lend a hand when it was needed most. Unfortunately, the fallout from the divorce was relentless. Beyond the emotional devastation and the financial strain, I found myself grappling with a new, insidious consequence. My credit score had taken a massive hit. The exorbitant child support payments and the division of assets left me in a precarious financial position, struggling to make ends meet. Bills piled up, and despite my efforts to manage the situation, it would get far worse before it got better. You see, I worked in financial services, a field where maintaining a high credit score was not just important, it was a requirement. My role involved managing sensitive financial data, and my employer required a credit score above 710. When my credit score plummeted due to the ongoing financial turmoil from the divorce, I was informed that I could no longer meet the job requirements and was let go. It felt like the final blow, the point where everything I had worked for came crashing down. Being fired from my job was a crushing blow. My entire career had been built on a foundation of financial acumen and stability, and now I was left without the one thing that had defined me professionally. Losing my job meant losing my primary source of income and my sense of purpose. I tried to stay hopeful and look for other opportunities, but the combination of being jobless and homeless made it nearly impossible to see a way forward. My credit was so damaged that finding a place to live became an insurmountable challenge. Without a stable income or a good credit score, landlords were unwilling to rent to me, and I had become homeless, a stark and painful contrast to the life I once knew. The security I had taken for granted was gone, replaced by uncertainty and desperation. Throughout it all, Jake remained my lifeline. He provided me with a couch to sleep on, a small but crucial gesture of kindness that kept me from spiraling further into despair. While it was far from an ideal situation, he helped me navigate the immediate crisis, offering a temporary refuge while I worked to regain my footing. Each day was a struggle, but I tried to stay focused on finding a solution. I applied for various jobs, even those outside my field, and began exploring every avenue to rebuild my life. The road ahead was long and fraught with challenges, but with Jake's help and my determination to overcome the obstacles, I started to piece together a plan for moving forward. It had been 6 months since the divorce was finalized, and the challenges kept piling up. Each day was a battle to stay afloat, searching for a job while being dead broke, trying to make the most out of what little I had left. One day, as I was helping Jake with a mundane errand to get out of the house and clear my mind, he asked if I wanted to come with him to the gas station. I agreed, needing a distraction from my endless job search. At the station, while Jake was busy pumping gas, I found myself aimlessly wandering the aisles of the convenience store. As I shuffled through the shelves, my eyes fell on a display of lottery tickets. I had never been much of a gambler, but in that moment, feeling the weight of financial despair, I decided to try my luck. I pulled out the last $5 bill I had and bought a quick pick ticket, not really expecting anything, but hoping for a small break in what had become my life. The next morning, I woke up, poured a cup of coffee, and picked up where I'd left off the previous day with my job search. Jake, who was known to go to bed early, had a habit of recording the evening news and watching it the next morning. As he plopped down on the couch, sitting in the spot where I'd rested my head all night, the news began to play in the background. At one point in the segment, the lottery numbers came up. I jotted the winning numbers down on a piece of paper and went about my morning routine. That afternoon, around 2 p.m., I found myself bored and restless and decided to check my ticket against the winning numbers I'd written down earlier in the day. To my utter disbelief, the numbers revealed a winning combination. I couldn't believe my eyes as I saw the jackpot amount, $77 million. It was as if time had stopped and reality had shifted. My heart raced as I double, then triple-checked the ticket, convinced that I must be dreaming. When the initial shock wore off, I knew I had to verify my win. I made an appointment with the lottery office, and 3 weeks later, they confirmed the staggering amount. I had won the jackpot, $77 million. I was in a daze, struggling to comprehend the magnitude of my luck. The lottery office explained the details of the lump sum payout after taxes. Given the size of the winnings, the tax burden was substantial. After federal taxes, state taxes, and other deductions, the amount I would take home in a lump sum was approximately $44 million. It was an incomprehensible figure, a complete turnaround from my dire situation just hours before. The realization of what this meant was overwhelming. I was no longer dead broke. I had a fortune that could not only solve my immediate financial problems, but also provide for a future I had once thought was out of reach. It felt like a miracle, a life-altering turn of events that had come out of nowhere, just when I needed it the most. In the days that followed, I began to think about how best to use the money. I wanted to ensure my financial security and provide for my future while also helping others who were in situations similar to what I had endured. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but the newfound wealth gave me a sense of hope I hadn't felt in a long time. As for Jake, he was astonished and thrilled for me, celebrating the incredible twist of fate that had come my way. Unfortunately, not everyone was as thrilled for me as Jake was. When the news of my lottery win broke, it didn't take long for Linda to catch wind of it. It was as if the moment my good fortune was announced, she erupted like a storm. She bombarded me with phone calls, texts, and emails, each more frantic and insistent than the last. Her voice was filled with a mix of anger and desperation, and it was clear she saw this as an opportunity to get more out of me. Linda's harassment knew no bounds. She reached out to me at all hours, sometimes with threats and other times with pleading demands. Her primary objective was to get more money, believing that with the sudden windfall, I was now a financial fountain. She also demanded custody of the kids, using them as pawns in her attempts to manipulate me into giving her a larger share of my winnings. It was a calculated move, an effort to exploit the situation to her advantage. Despite her attempts to play her cards smartly, I had already prepared for such a scenario. You see, in the weeks leading up to my appointment with the lottery office before I claimed the prize, I consulted with an estate planning attorney to safeguard my newfound wealth. We discussed various strategies to protect my assets, and one option in particular stood out. A self-settled asset protection trust. Never heard of it? Well, a self-settled asset protection trust is a legal arrangement that allows an individual to create a trust and place their assets into it, while still retaining some control over those assets. The key advantage is that it provides a layer of protection against creditors and legal claims. Essentially, while I could manage and benefit from the trust, it legally shielded the assets from being directly targeted by lawsuits or claims. This type of trust is particularly useful in situations like mine, where there was a significant financial windfall and the potential for legal claims or attempts at manipulation. By establishing the trust, I ensured that it was actually the trust, not me personally, that claimed the lottery jackpot. This setup meant that Linda could not directly lay claim to the winnings or use the legal system to extract more money from me. Even though the situation was challenging and emotionally draining, having the trust in place gave me a sense of security. I was able to navigate Linda's demands and legal threats with the confidence that my financial future was safeguarded. With the financial protection in place and the burden of Linda's harassment somewhat mitigated, I began to focus on using the lottery win to create a stable future for myself and my children. Unfortunately, Linda's reaction to my lottery win wasn't just limited to harassment and demands. She took things a step further by attempting to reopen the divorce proceedings. Her goal was to leverage the situation to claim a portion of the jackpot, believing that the sudden influx of wealth was a golden opportunity to get more from me. Her attorney argued a number of points in an attempt to reopen the divorce. They claimed that the divorce settlement was unfair given the new circumstances and that the lottery winnings should be considered in the final division of assets. Linda's legal team argued that the financial windfall represented a significant change in circumstances that should be addressed by the court. Additionally, Linda's legal team sued me, asserting that she was entitled to half of the lottery winnings, based on the argument that the jackpot was a marital asset. They contended that since the ticket was purchased immediately after the marriage ended, the winnings should be split just like any other marital property. However, despite their arguments and attempts to manipulate the situation, I ultimately prevailed in court. There were several reasons why Linda wasn't entitled to any of the lottery winnings. For one, the trust was a critical component in protecting my winnings. The trust structure meant that the winnings were not directly attributable to me personally, but rather to the trust itself. The court also recognized the validity of the trust. Legal precedents affirm that assets held in such trusts are generally protected from claims, including those arising from divorce settlements. The trust's existence meant that the lottery winnings could not be classified as marital property or subject to division under the divorce agreement. What's more, since the divorce settlement had not awarded Linda any alimony due to our equal financial contributions during the marriage, Linda's new claims for alimony were unfounded. The sudden influx of wealth did not retroactively change the terms of our settlement or create a basis for alimony 6 months after our divorce was finalized. Ultimately, the court ruled in my favor, acknowledging the legitimacy of the trust and rejecting Linda's claims. After the tumultuous period following my legal battles with Linda, I knew I wanted to make a positive impact with my newfound wealth. One of my first priorities was to express my gratitude to Jake, who had been my only rock during the darkest times. I gave him a substantial financial gift, enough to ease a lifetime of any financial burdens he might face. I also helped him purchase his first home, something I knew he had been dreaming of. Beyond the material support, I wanted to make sure he knew how much his friendship had meant to me during those challenging months. I also reached out to my parents and siblings, ensuring that they felt the benefits of my good fortune. I helped my parents by paying off their mortgage, allowing them to retire without the looming stress of home payments. I also set up a trust fund for their future medical expenses and made sure they could enjoy their retirement without financial worry. For my siblings, I took a similar approach. I provided each of them with financial support to pay off debts and secure their futures. My brother received funding to start a small business he had always dreamed of, while my sister was able to pursue advanced education without the burden of student loans. As for Linda, her situation after the divorce and the fallout from the lottery win was notably different from my own. Her relationship with her work husband, which she thought had seemed promising at first, began to unravel after our divorce. The dynamics between them changed significantly once the initial excitement wore off and she took me back to court. Their relationship, built on the foundations of infidelity and emotional instability, could not withstand the scrutiny and the challenges that came with it. After they broke up, Linda's personal life continued in a downward spiral. She gained another 50 pounds, bringing her total weight gain to 90 pounds since our separation. She struggled with health issues and low self-esteem, which further compounded her misery. Her attempts to find happiness through relationships and external validation had not brought her the fulfillment she sought. Her ongoing struggles were a stark contrast to the life she had hoped to build post-divorce. The decisions she made, both in personal and financial realms, had led her down a path of increased stress and dissatisfaction. It was a sobering reminder of how complex and multifaceted personal and financial decisions can be, and how they can profoundly impact one's life in ways that are not always immediately apparent. Winning the lottery has brought about a monumental shift in my life. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of decisions and adjustments, but as time went on, I found a new rhythm and purpose. The financial freedom has allowed me to make choices that were previously out of reach, and it profoundly transformed my day-to-day existence. After making sure Jake and my family were secure, I started investing in myself. I purchased a beautiful home in a serene location, one that provided a peaceful retreat and a space for my children to visit and enjoy. The house was equipped with modern amenities and designed with their comfort in mind. I also set up college funds for them, ensuring their education would be financially secure no matter what they chose to pursue. My relationship with my children has grown stronger. Despite the changes in our family structure, I have maintained a close bond with them. They visit frequently, and I make it a priority to be present in their lives, attending their events and supporting their endeavors. The financial stability has allowed me to focus more on quality time with them, enriching our relationship and providing a stable environment for their growth. In terms of my dating life, the lottery win had a noticeable impact. The sudden influx of wealth made it easier to attract attention, including from individuals who might not have been interested otherwise. Meeting gorgeous models and high-profile individuals became a more common occurrence. The ease of dating and the opportunities that arose were both exciting and overwhelming. However, despite the allure of glamorous relationships and the attention from beautiful people, I found that these connections often lacked depth and genuine emotional fulfillment. The superficiality and fleeting nature of these encounters left me yearning for something more meaningful. It was during this period of dating that I met someone who changed my perspective. I encountered a smart, gorgeous young lady who stood out from the rest. She treated me with respect and kindness, and our connection was genuine and deep. Unlike the fleeting and often hollow interactions I had experienced before, our relationship was built on mutual respect, shared values, and emotional intimacy. She understood and valued me beyond my financial status, and her authenticity has made a profound impact on me. Realizing how rare and special this relationship was, I decided to stop dating others. I wanted to focus on building a future with her. Our relationship has been a source of joy and stability, and I see a promising path ahead with her by my side. I look forward to starting a new chapter of my life, with plans to marry her. Of course, given my financial situation and the lessons learned from the past, a prenuptial agreement will be required. At the end of the day, winning the lottery has transformed my life in ways I could never have imagined. It has allowed me to support my family, contribute to meaningful causes, and find a partner who truly values me. As I look forward to this new beginning, I am filled with hope and excitement for the future we will build together, and as for Linda, I truly hope that she will regret divorcing me for the rest of her fat, cheating, no good miserable life.